Hello and welcome to a special News 12 Vote 2011 debate. I'm Brian Coneybear. Tonight, the race for mayor in Mount Vernon. The incumbent, Clinton Young, was ousted after one term during a heated four-way Democratic primary back in September. We are now down to just two candidates, and we are happy to have them both with us tonight. First, we welcome Ernest Davis. Mr. Davis won the Democratic primary in September by about 100 votes. Mr. Davis is the former mayor of Mount Vernon, who also has the Independence Party line this year. He served 3 terms from 1996 to 2008 and professionally is a licensed architect. Thank you for being here, sir. We also welcome Maureen Walker. Ms. Walker is a registered Democrat, but after losing that very close September primary, she is now running on the Conservative Party line. Ms. Walker is currently serving her 5th term as the city comptroller in Mount Vernon. She is also a certified public accountant. Thank you for being here as well, ma'am. Right now, we want to meet the panel of journalists who will be questioning these two candidates over the next hour for us. First, representing News 12 Westchester is our anchor and news director, Janine Rose. Ms. Rose has been covering local politics and elections here in Westchester and the Hudson Valley for more than 2 decades. We also welcome Bob Marone. Mr. Marone is a radio talk show host whose local news and politics show, Good Morning Westchester, can be heard weekdays on radio station WVOX in New Rochelle. Also with us tonight is Karen McBride, the executive editor of the Westchester County Business Journal and HV Biz. Those publications focus on the economy, jobs, and other business issues throughout the region. Thank you all for being with us tonight. We appreciate it. Both of the candidates have been briefed on the ground rules of this debate. Earlier, the campaigns picked numbers to determine the order for opening and closing statements. Ms. Walker, you will start tonight. You have 2 minutes for your opening remarks.
Good evening. Let me first of all thank you for hosting this debate tonight. My name is Maureen Walker. I'm a lifelong Democrat, but I'm running on the Conservative line for mayor, ballot position 4C. As mayor, I will provide our city with good, clean, honest, and responsible leadership that has eluded our city for too long. The majority of our city workers are decent and hardworking. However, recently, we need to break what appears to be a culture of crime and corruption that tarnishes our city. During the 12 years of the Davis administration, I was part of the investigating team that resulted in the following indictments and convictions of Davis appointees. Consumer Affairs Director for fraud and misappropriation of city funds, Parking Director for fraud and misappropriation of city funds, DPW Supervisor for fraud and kickbacks, Planning Commissioner for fraud and kickbacks, DPW Supervisor for fraud and lying to investigators. The almost $5 million lost under the Davis administration through fraud could have benefited our residents. In 2005, Mr. Davis started a disaster relief fund to aid the victims of Hurricane Katrina. Money was collected from our residents to bring some relief to the suffering in that area. Sadly, that money was never sent to the victims. We do not know how much was collected, spent, and what remains. In 2008, I requested an audit to audit that fund, but received no response. Mr. Davis, I'm publicly requesting that you turn over the records of this National Disaster Relief Fund for public scrutiny. Currently, my office is auditing yet another case of fraud involving thousands of dollars in the Youth Bureau. This investigation will be turned over to law enforcement agencies.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Your 2 minutes are up. Some of those issues I'm sure we will get to later in the debate. All right, Mr. Ernie Davis, you have 2 minutes for your opening remarks, sir.
Hello, I'm Ernie Davis, the Democratic nominee for mayor of the city of Mount Vernon. Professionally, I'm an architect. Government experience was a building commissioner, commissioner of assessment, chair of planning board, chairman of the real estate board, county legislator for 12 years, and mayor for 12 years. During that time that I was in office, those were tough times. The city was almost bankrupt with a reputation to match. We worked hard and brought the city back. We built housing, developed jobs, developed Sanford Boulevard, Target, Best Buy, Staples, renovated storefronts, created Arts on 3rd, created Mount Vernon Grand Prix, created Parade of Flags, Summer Breeze concerts, We gave out 100 scholarships per year. We improved the central library and many more. When I left office, there was $12 million in surplus. Now there is none. The city's reputation has gone with it. Street crime higher than ever. School taxes are out of control with less students graduating. Foreclosures, 15%, highest in Westchester. Home values plummeted. These are troubled times. No time for novices with no demonstrated abilities to meet the challenges of the day. I'm an architect and planner. I have experience and I brought this and can bring this city together. You may be able to drive a car, but that does not mean you can drive a truck. The controller seems adept at dishing out dirt, spreading lies, but not good for balancing budgets or collecting rents on properties. She's adept at selling city properties at giveaway prices and dividing people. Her candidacy is exactly what this city does not need.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. All right, let's get right to round one of the questions from our media panel. The first will come from News 12 Westchester's Janine Rose. It will be directed to Mr. Davis, who will have a minute and a half to respond. Janine.
Mr. Davis, I want to start with the culture of crime and corruption that Ms. Walker alluded to. Throughout your previous tenure as mayor, there were allegations of corruption, arrests of former employees, and we even saw the FBI march into City Hall shortly before you left office. To date, though, you have never officially been charged with any wrongdoing. As Ms. Walker pointed out just this week, allegations surfaced of at least $12,000 missing from this Hurricane Katrina fund that was set up by you in 2005. Why do you think these allegations persist, even though you've been out of office for 4 years?
Because people want to damage my reputation. They're scared that the most effective mayor in Mount Vernon history will come back, and I did. Number one, there is no missing money. You keep talking about missing money. The Hurricane Relief Fund is intact. It just has not been distributed because of certain technicalities in the area. It is there. Nobody has touched it. So to say that it's missing is missing information. In terms of people being so-called corrupt, number one, I'm running a city. You've seen all of the things that I've done. We depend on the controller who has audit power to look into any allegations. So to suggest that people are doing something and you're not doing anything about it, either that you are participating in the corruption, you are inept, or you're trying to set up a situation for yourself to run for mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Ms. Walker, you get the same amount of time, a minute and a half on the Hurricane Katrina Relief Fund, I guess.
The Hurricane Katrina Fund was set up around 2006. In 2008, it was brought to my attention that there was a particular statement there and an account there. I then started to get information to audit that account. I wrote the former mayor, Davis, and I haven't gotten any response to it. It's unthinkable that those funds were collected specifically to relieve the victims of the Hurricane Katrina, and that has not been done. So it's either someone is being very irresponsible or they don't know how to distribute the funds correctly. It's a shame that the people of the city gave their hard-earned dollars for this program, and that has not been the funds have not been correctly distributed.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, Ms. Rose, you can ask a follow-up question now that will be for Ernie Davis only. This is a quick one. He'll have 30 seconds to respond.
Yeah, Mr. Davis, what actually happened to that money? You say it still exists in a fund, but yet Ms. Walker has been saying they can't find these funds.
That has nothing to do with the city. There's a special fund set up, has nothing to do with the city. She has no control over this money. These monies were collected for the specific purpose of catastrophes. It can be distributed at any moment. We were supposed to go to Mississippi. It didn't happen, and a lot of things got underway, and we will distribute the funds as we see necessary. To make a suggestion that somehow something is wrong is part of the problem that we face down in the city.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is going to come from WVX Radio. Bob Barone. It will be directed to Maureen Walker.
Comptroller Walker, how do you interpret the corruption that you've outlined? You were comptroller during the years that Mayor Davis was in charge. There was the issue here of competence or participation. I'd like you to answer that, and also, how would you describe his administration during that time?
The administration of Ernie Davis during that time was one of corruption and crime-ridden and greed. Of all of the incidents that I related in my opening remarks, of all of the convictions and indictments, my office had conducted audits, and we brought those audits and the results of those audits to the attention of the former mayor. We sat with him on many occasions and told him this was happening. So I told him what was happening, and basically what he said was, "You don't know what you're talking about." And for someone to do that and to know fully well that those people who reported to him, they did not report to me. They were Davis's appointees. He was in control over them. He was in charge of those departments. My office has handled in excess of $3 billion in the last 17 years. And we've never had any major infractions in that office because I run a very tight ship.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Davis, you have a minute and a half on the same question, I guess, how Ms. Walker's tenure coincided with your tenure and all these allegations of wrongdoing.
This is all new. Number one, understand that the controller signed checks on everything that has happened. So for her to now come back and say that was corruption, that means either she was incompetent or she was in on the corruption. How can you tell me now that you did audit? For instance, you signed for when the DPW had underweight of garbage, she signed a check. I mean, you can't have it both ways. Either you audited, reported it, and did anything about it. To suggest that I knew about corruption, she sat with me on corruption, and I did nothing about it as hard as I worked, that makes absolutely no sense. And that is just a fabrication. At best, it's a fabrication. At worst, it's a political trick, and it won't work.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. All right, Mr. Marone, you can ask a follow-up question. It will be for Maureen Walker only. 30 seconds to respond.
The issue here, Ms. Walker, is are we talking, at least from your point of view, about competence or participation as you saw it?
Let me give you a very good example. Consumer Affairs Director. This was a guy who went out and took the funds of the vendors and never sent it in to the city. And when I sat with Ernie Davis on that situation, he couldn't believe it until we found all the records, and what my office did was to interview the vendors out there. And after it was brought to his attention that there was over $20,000 missing, he refused to accept responsibility for his appointee.
You, all right, thank you. Those are quick responses to what are supposed to be short follow-up questions.
That is just not true.
You will have time, sir. You will have time in a moment. We're going to go to our third panelist, Karen McBride from the Westchester County Business Journal and HV Biz. Your first question will go to Ernie Davis. He can use some time to respond if he needs to.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I'm going to shift gears a little bit here to talk about economic development. Mr. Davis, there is a growing push nationally and locally for transit-oriented development, which basically means building closer to train stations to encourage growth of downtowns. And I believe the city recently received a grant from the state to conduct a marketing study for economic growth based on this transit-oriented development opportunities, which is certainly one of the big talking points for developers. Could you give us your take on transit-oriented development? Is this the direction you think the city should be taking?
I think that, yes, I think that the city should go in any direction that creates jobs and opportunities, because only then do you put a hold on taxes. You can't just cut your way out of this. People need work. People need jobs, and we need to create an atmosphere that developers can come into. That's what happened in Sanford Boulevard. We created an atmosphere for developers to come in. They came in, and as a result, We created 1,000 jobs on Sanford Boulevard, almost $5 million in retail sales tax, and that's the type of development that we need to do. And of the candidates that's here, I'm the only candidate that can do that and has a record of doing that.
Thank you, sir. All right, Ms. Walker, your take on transit-oriented development and jobs in Mount Vernon.
In order for us to attract businesses and jobs to Mount Vernon, first of all, the city has to deal with the crime situation. No city will be able to attract any new entrants or any new businesses unless we deal with that. We also have to deal with the tax situation. Mount Vernon's taxes are really too high, and it takes somebody as committed and someone who knows about finances and can manage budgets to be able to deal with that and to work with a school system that has the highest amount of taxes. We also need to deal with the quality of life issues in Mount Vernon. In order for us to provide jobs, we have to be able to have those things addressed, those issues addressed. Crime, taxes, and quality of life issues.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, Karen McBride, you can ask a follow-up question for Mr. Davis only. He'll have 30 seconds to respond.
Okay, Mr. Davis, you mentioned creating an atmosphere to encourage economic development. Could you tell us what other efforts the city should be making in terms of economic development?
You got to bring the city together. First of all, this is a good city, a great city. But the people are divided, just like Ms. Walker wants to do again. You have to, when you bring a city together under a common cause, that creates an atmosphere for business to prosper. I did it when I came in office. We were still had crime, not as much as we have now, but we had crime then. But they looked over that because we had a dynamic leadership that invited business.
Thank you, sir. All right, panelists, all very good questions for round one. Thank you very much. We also want to hear from Mount Vernon voters tonight as well. This week, News 12 reporters were out on the street asking regular folks to pose a question for the candidates. Take a listen. The first question comes from a woman named Carolyn.
I would just like to know what's going to happen to our youth, my grandkids that's coming up in this city today. Could you tell me what's going to happen to them? They have nothing to do here. They've closed everything for these kids to do. Could you ask me what's going to happen to them?
Let's start with Maureen Walker. You have 1 minute to respond on youth programs. Is there enough for young people to do constructively?
There isn't enough for young people. As I said before, I am auditing the Youth Bureau. We are missing thousands of dollars. Those are dollars that can go towards providing programs for our youth. Unless we are able to manage a budget properly and not spend irresponsibly, as the last 16 years in city government has done, we will not be able to have the resources to provide for our youths. We also need to work with the schools, and we also need to work with the parents and the churches to open up their facilities so that we can provide the right type of services for those children. They are our future.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Davis, you have 1 minute on youth programs in Mount Vernon.
First of all, you didn't answer the question. What we need to do is have youth work in the summer, have the school board closes the schoolyards at 3:30. We need to open those schoolyards. We have gyms, we have playgrounds that is not being used after 3:30. I'm going to expand Dole Center to include a basketball court. We're going to go to Brush Park. We already put lights in so they can play at night. We're going to create jobs so that they can have monies in their pockets during the summer. We're going to create the Hip Hop Culture Gallery. That will provide jobs and opportunities and job training. We're going to do everything that we can to encourage entrepreneurship. We talk to the youth. Interestingly, the oldest candidate in this race is attracting the youngest people because the children need direction, and we're going to give that to them.
Thank you, sir. That finishes up round one of this Vote 2011 debate. We're going to go right to another round of questions from our media panel now. This time we'll start with Karen McBride from the Westchester Business Journal, and your question is for Maureen Walker.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Ms. Walker, you mentioned crime, and certainly the city does have an image as being crime-ridden and also as being unwelcoming to business in terms of zoning and regulatory processes and other costs. Could you tell us specifically what you would do to overcome some of those perceptions and deal with the real issues of taxes and high costs of doing business?
First of all, the city does have a problem with crime, and it has to do also with the image of its leadership. Unless we have leadership that is ethical, uncorrupted, leadership that's committed to the residents of the city of Mount Vernon, we are going to continue to have that essence of crime in its city. Unless we can provide recreational facilities for our children, which we haven't done. Mr. Davis talks about we are going to do it. What has he done in the past to provide those recreational facilities for our children? What has he done to provide senior citizen programs? We have things such as let's for example say the Dole Center that has been under repairs for years. He hasn't done that. So he has not provided an area of recreation facilities for our children nor our seniors. There is so much to be done. But as I said before, that unless we have leaders who are strong and committed to what must be done in that city and leaders who are ethical, we are going to continue to have this problem with crime and high taxes and lack of recreational facilities for our children.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Mr. Davis, your take on helping businesses succeed. I think that was the actual question.
Yeah, thank you. The thing, you have to have a welcoming. You have to cut down on the building permit process. And I am a former building commissioner, and I've sent word that when you come in to do business in Mount Vernon, we are open for business. We're going to work with the small businesses. We're going to take out some of the red tape. And if we do some of that, the business will be welcoming. Businesses are attracted to me because they know I mean business. They know I'm an architect. They know I'm a planner. I understand the game. And they understand I'll be fair with them. This has nothing to do with any of the things that Madam Walker has been saying. Business people want to know that they can come in, do business with a city that wants to do business. In terms of crime, that is just vastly overrated. You cannot continually talk about crime because, number one, you talk about these ethics, and you took contributions for A&D Carting, Atlantic Development. You work at Iona College at least 2 days a week. The rental properties you talk about, you haven't collected on $468,000. Pilot payments, you haven't collected on that. Parking, you overlooked $87,000 in that. No leases for $214,000, and the list goes on.
Thank you, sir. All right, Karen McBride, you can ask a follow-up question. It will be for Maureen Walker only.
Okay, I'll circle back to the problem with the perception as being a deterrent to business. And you mentioned having the right leadership in place. Now, ideally, if the right leadership were in place, what types of businesses do you see as vital to the city's progress? And how would you specifically plan to attract them?
Businesses will be attracted, as I said before, with the right type of leadership. We talk about opening City Hall, and we talk about having permits done correctly and in a timely manner. That has not been done under the Davis administration. There's been a backlog. We would like to have businesses that do not put a burden on the taxpayers, businesses that will pay their fair share of taxes. And if they have to have pilots, which are payments in lieu of taxes, they should be not for an extended period of time.
Thank you, ma'am. That is a very quick follow-up, that 30 seconds. Our next question will come from WVOX Radio, Bob Marone. This time it's for Ernie Davis.
Mr. Mayor, you had 12 years in office. There are those that would say, well, you had your turn at bat. Let's let others move in. On the other hand, you've been out of office now 4 years. What have you learned? What's different? What did you pick up during those 4 years that you would bring to the job now?
And don't take this off my time, but number one, I'm glad you said I was not in office. All this stuff she's talking about, I wasn't in office. So you're talking about the wrong mayor. But what have I learned? I learned that people can damage you. All of the hard work, people can damage it. People can, but that makes me stronger. People knew that I got a bad shake, and they came to my rescue. I worked hard to bring the city where it is. To have people just come up and do that is not comfortable. But I move on. I will go to the people more, because it was the people that caused me to be here in the first place. I did not want to run for mayor, but they insisted that I come back. They insisted that I bring back Arch on 3rd. They insisted that I bring back Parade of Flags. They insisted that I come back and talk to the children the way I talk to the children. They insisted on my humanity. And that's what's missing. You can talk about crime, you can talk about anything you want to do, but unless you understand what a mayor does, the mayor is a cheerleader for his city. And people have picked up on it. They saw it, they took for granted that a change would be better, and they found out it wasn't. So they are coming to me. They know as good as anybody here that Miss Walker, I love Miss Walker, she's not mayoral material.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Walker, I trust you want to respond to that and kind of your take on the last 4 years when Ernie Davis was not in office.
The last 12 years of Ernie Davis administration, again, I'm going to say, was riddled with crime and fraudulent behavior and unethical behavior. He talks about my office not collecting rents. But when it was brought to his attention, he said to us, and it's quoted in an article in the newspaper, that he prefers to have that tenant there as a watchkeeper of the property as opposed to collecting the rents for the city. He talks about the corruption that took place, that probably he had no knowledge of, and even when it was brought to his attention, he didn't care about it, or he was involved in it. So I don't know how Mr. Davis can want to come back in office. The city of Mount Vernon will be facing the same type of administration, one that's unethical, one that is full of corruption and crime. So I tell the people of the city, enough is enough. It's time for us to move forward with a new person who is capable of bringing good, clean government to the city of Mount Vernon.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Bob Marone, you can ask a follow-up question for Mr. Davis only.
Mayor, is there, with the insights you have now, is there anything that you would do differently than in your previous administration?
I would probably change controllers, because I would probably wouldn't have this problem if the controller were on the ball and that she would pick it up. To say that you sat with me and you pointed out crime and I said forget about it is absolutely absurd. And that's untruthfulness. The other thing is that she teaches. She doesn't have time to do this job because she teaches 2 days a week. Being mayor, as you probably know, is a full-time job. She does not have time to do this. She's a teacher.
Thank you, sir. We're going to go back to News 12's Janine Rose. This time her question will be for Maureen Walker.
All right, Ms. Walker, I'm sure you're going to want to respond to some of that, but I do want to take us back to the specifics with crime. As you mentioned earlier, one of the most pressing problems in Mount Vernon is the escalating crime rate. In fact, we witnessed an all-out gang war again in the city this past summer. In the midst of all this, we've had rotating police commissioners in Mount Vernon, 4 different commissioners in the past few years. If you are elected mayor, what specifically would you do to try to address the escalating crime rate and to bring some stability to the police department and the commissioner's office?
I will work with the police commissioner. In order for us to address crime, we will have to be able to have our cops on the street. Now, under the Davis administration, we had programs in place that were eliminated under his administration. The DARE program, the PAL program, the Community Police Watchkeeping program. Those are programs that he eliminated under his watch. Those are things that we have to bring back to the city. We have to be able to engage, talking with the youth. He talks about me teaching, but I teach in the primary schools in Mount Vernon. I've taught from kindergarten to college level. I have molded the minds of those children and put them on the right path. So I have been a full-time controller. I work sometimes from 7 in the morning to 11 at night. I work from home. I work on weekends. And if I take an hour of my lunch period to teach, I don't see a problem in that. I think it's a very honorable thing to do because I'm molding the minds of our young people. I have been in the classrooms for the last 18 years in the city of Mount Vernon, from kindergarten to the high school. And I bring to those students programs that would help them to keep them off of the streets. I teach them responsibility.
Thank you, ma'am, for respecting the bell. Mr. Davis, you now have 90 seconds on fighting crime and stability in the police commissioner's office.
First of all, when I come in office, we will assess the commissioner that's there. We will go over and see if his ambitions match my needs. That's number one. Number two, I think Ms. Walker confuses me with the past mayor. But I guess it's fortuitous that she does that. Crime is an interesting thing because you cannot have joblessness, lack of education, family instability, guns and drugs on the street, and think that you will not have crime. So I'm the only one that can go into the so-called gang areas and talk to the folks. I have done that. I have given jobs to people who were gangbangers. And they have, so I can go in on 7th Avenue and 3rd Street and get out of my car by myself, give hugs, but I also will give jobs. We plan to create jobs and opportunities, and I plan to go into those areas, talk to everybody in the area, talk to the neighbors, talk to the alleged perpetrators, and see what we can do with that. We plan to take guns off the street. Guns cannot stay on the streets because when young men, immature, sell problems, it cannot be with guns.
Thank you, sir. Janine Rose, you can now ask a follow-up question for Maureen Walker-Owen.
Ms. Walker, because there was such confusion, would you explain, you mentioned you're working as well as being a full-time controller, working in the schools to the point that Ernie Davis made. How does that work? Are you going to teach after your hours at City Hall? Explain how it works.
I have taught after hours at Iona College for many, many years. I have taught for an hour at Iona College during my break or during my lunch period. I am on call 24 hours as a controller. I work on weekends. I work early in the mornings. I don't see why it's a problem. For us to talk about education and educating our young people in the city, I have done that. I have taught them. I have prepared them. In terms...
Thank you, ma'am. There's that bell again. It's time for another question from the voting public in Mount Vernon right now. This one comes from a resident named John. Listen.
I would like to know if the Memorial Field project will be on time, and if it is, when will it be open?
Mr. Davis, let's start with you this time. Your thoughts on the Memorial Field project. Is it going to make any progress?
I don't think it's a good project. I think it does not create jobs and opportunities. The way it is fashion. You cannot build it, pay the monies that you have to pay back, and keep the maintenance up. There's not enough revenue that's going to come through those gates to pay. So therefore, the taxpayer will have to pick up the tab. So what should you do? We should create, and I worked on that project for many years, we have to get a developer that will come in and develop the project, give Mount Vernon special priorities, and have the developers pay us, not us pay, have the taxpayer pick up a burden for bad planning. Right now, I went down there the other day, and they're doing things that's absolutely absurd. They're cutting down trees, they're taking out walls that you have to put back up, and it's just a disaster. So we were going to level it, and if I can stop the project, I'll stop it when I come in office.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Walker, your take on Memorial Field and its future.
Memorial Field is once the pride of Mount Vernon, and it has to be renovated, it has to be refurbished. The city right now has a total of approximately $13 million to refurbish that field. It has to be done. And if it's going to be more than $13 million, I will be asking the federal government and the state government and for private donations, going to businesses to ask for private donations so that we can refurbish it. Memorial Field is going to take a long time once we've put that type of money into it for us to get a repayment on those funds. Our repay period may be 5-10 years. However, at this point in time, it has to be renovated. It's an eyesore in the city. And under the Davis administration, every year we have put aside in the budget $100,000 for Memorial Field. And in the last 4 or 5 years of his administration, we've spent $10,000 to $12,000 of that money.
Thank you, ma'am. Let's get right back to the panelists for another round of questions. Janine Rose from News 12, your question this time is for Ernie Davis.
Mr. Davis, as you noted earlier, you've been given credit for bringing economic development to Mount Vernon, and I'll use the Sanford Boulevard as the example. But many also argue that urban renewal has lagged far behind and needs to be addressed in order for Mount Vernon to attract new businesses and even new residents and homeowners. If elected mayor again, what will you do to try to take care of those quality of life issues, and give us some specifics?
Specifically, this is what I did before I left office. I bought a lot of properties in the downtown 3rd Street district, and that was to be planned for a major development. You can't do it unless you have the funds. But chagrin is I found that the controller had sold off some of the properties for less than the amount that they should have been sold. So I don't know where that is now, but it is essential to develop. I'm an architect. We develop. We have to develop the downtown. We have to fix the sidewalks. We have to straighten out the storefronts. We have to bring people downtown. I want to change the 4th Avenue into an arts district. Artists change downtowns or places better than any other entity. We want to do that. We want to take over the schools and make it an artist loft, and we want to finish Hartley Park, and we want to fix up that area. What is happening in Mount Vernon is doable. It is not a city that's gone straight to hell, as Madam Walker would say. It is doable, but you have to have work. You have to have an insight on what motivates people. You have to talk to people. You can't just talk about statistics. These are people. People are in need. People hurt. And when they are hurt and they have been disadvantaged, they do strange things.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Walker, your turn on the same question, urban renewal, quality of life, and I guess you probably want to respond to those selling properties.
I never knew I had so much of power as he has given to me that I can sell property on my own. Unfortunately, Ernie Davis just doesn't understand how the city government works. And one of the things, I am a member of the Board of Estimate, of which he was also a member, who voted to sell property and never once objected to that. I'm a member of the Real Estate Committee. The other members are the people who he has appointed or he had appointed to that committee. I'm a member of I'm a voting member on the Urban Renewal Agency, of which he also appoints those members. So to say that I have sold property on my own is ludicrous. He has done the same. He has voted to sell property, and on many occasions, if we look back at the records, you will see Maureen Walker being the only voice of reason that has said many times, we will not sell property for $1, or we will not sell property for X amount of money, because it puts a greater burden on the people of this city.
Thank you, ma'am. Janine Rose, a follow-up question for Ernie Davis this time.
Mr. Davis, when I asked you how would you address the quality of life issues, you talked about schools and new businesses and new developments, but all of what you're talking about takes considerable dollars, a lot of money. Where in a city so impacted by the economic environment we're in now, where is Mount Vernon going to get that kind of money?
We have never had money. I got news for you. We never had money in Mount Vernon. That's where the ingenuity comes in. That's where having people who believe you. When I came in, Sanford Boulevard was just talk. 3rd Street was just talk. And we didn't have any money then, but we had attraction. People knew Ernie Davis would be fair, knew what he was doing, and they came in. That's why we had Best Buy, Target, Staples, CVS. A whole group of people came in, and we had no money then. So we can do it again.
Thank you, sir. We're going to go back to Bob Marone, WVOX Radio. His question this time will be directed to Maureen Walker.
Ms. Walker, Janine warmed you up a little bit for this one because in your campaign notes and in other comments that you've made, you've stated that the part of the tax in your city that is actually manageable is 23%. That's the city tax, whereas 13% from the county, another 63% from the schools. You've proposed cutting taxes. You've proposed adding DARE, the Police Athletic League, and these programs after school. And as we asked Mayor Davis, how would you pay for these things, and how would you cut taxes with such a small percentage being manageable?
The city's budget is one that has been proposed by the Board of Estimate and the City Council. And over the years, I have been a voice of reason for the people of the city. When the budgets were prepared by Ernie Davis at 7 and 9 and 15% and even 25% at one period in time, I and my office were the only people who sat there and were able to bring it down to 4 and 5%. It's a matter of managing the dollars that you have available to you responsibly. Ernie Davis talks about leaving $13 million in surplus, or 13,000 or whatever number he's used. There was never a $13 million worth of surplus, because a surplus, if he doesn't understand, is not the same as a fund balance. The city has had a fund balance over the years, and it's now been depleted because of administrations such as Ernie Davis, who wanted to continue to spend and not put the money in the right places in terms of providing dollars for the youth or for programs. As I said before, I'm now doing an audit of which a couple of $1,000s are missing. That's money that could have gone to programs for the youth. So I've been able to manage budgets properly. And if he were to follow my lead and understand how you prepare a budget, then he will have enough money, or then we'll have enough money to provide more programs.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Davis, you have a minute and a half on how you can cut city property taxes.
You're not going to cut city property taxes. Mr. Marone was true. I mean, you got 23%, you got 63 cents out of every dollar going to the schools. To keep cutting 23% and trying to balance the budget is ludicrous. I don't know what kind of controller you could possibly be not to understand that. So the only way you can have taxes leveled off is increase investment in the city that will create jobs and opportunity. And also meet with the school board and try to marry some of the efforts of the city and the school board. I propose putting at least 3 members on a board of trustees from the city. That will connect the city directly to the schools. And when the schools understand that, we can marry some of the services that the city and the school provides, and keep an eye on how they manage the city. We don't know how much money is being lost in the schools because we have nothing to do with the schools. So we're going to have to correct the statutory relationship with the city and the schools, because that is where the money is being spent. We spend $20,000 per student in Mount Vernon.
Thank you, sir. All right, Bob Maroney, you can pose a follow-up question for Maureen Walker only.
I almost wish I could ask them both this, but for you, Ms. Walker, is it realistic that we could in some way combine school services with the city, and how would you do that?
We have started to work on that. We can combine things like purchasing, right? Things like sanitation. We are working with the school system as we speak. The mayor cannot put trustees on the school board. Those trustees are elected by the people of the city. And let me go back to cutting city taxes. Yes, we have done that in the past. Yes, I have been an advocate for smaller increases in taxes year after year as we prepare the budget.
Thank you, ma'am. We're going to go back to Karen McBride, Westchester Business Journal and HVBiz. Your question this time is for Mr. Davis, but we're rapidly running out of time, so we're going to limit our responses, candidates, to 1 minute now. 1 minute.
Okay. Mr. Davis, earlier you mentioned downtown development, and there is a proposal by a private developer, Atlantic Development Group, for a $120 million housing and retail complex on downtown Gramerton Avenue. And I believe this project was proposed while you were mayor. The city has been calling on Westchester County to free up $4 million toward this development, but the county has basically been saying that this is not a cost-efficient project, and it would not commit these funds. Should the county be a partner in this, and if so, how would you get the county on board for this?
The county should be a partner. My position, and I have been, contrary to Madam Walker, I was not the mayor for the last 4 years. It started with me, but this is the way I'll look at it. I will look at that project to see if it is in fact beneficial for the city. I don't know if it is. I don't know if it isn't. But the county notoriously has always backed out of deals. When I was doing 3rd Street and 2nd Avenue, they backed out of that deal. And so what I had to do is, 3rd Street was very important, so I took home funds and put it into the project, and therefore it was able to be done. Ms. Walker knows nothing about doing this kind of development. And so if you think a project is good, then you fight for it. Sanford Boulevard was good. I had 15 lawsuits. It took me 3.5 years, but I did it because at the end of the rainbow, that was 1,000 jobs and $5 million in taxes.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Walker, you have a minute now on the Atlantic development and county participation, I guess.
The Atlantic Development Project, as far as I'm concerned, is not a very good project for the city of Mount Vernon. I voted against it, and I voted against it because of the pilots. The pilots are going to be in excess of 25 years. The pilots amounts are very, very small. In today's economic environment, we do not need to put the additional burden on the people of the city. The project is too large for where it's located. And so I don't believe it's that great of a project. I don't even think the mayor, Ernie Davis, knows right now that there's a pilot set up for X amount of dollars and for X amount of time. And so he talks about all these projects, but does not understand about pilot payments and whether it will be a good deal for the city of Mount Vernon. We do not need to put additional burden on the taxpayers of our city who are hurting right now.
Thank you, ma'am. Karen McBride, a follow-up for Mr. Davis only.
Well, I would ask you, Mr. Davis, to respond to that about the pilot program, please.
Well, it's interesting. She said she didn't vote for it, but she took contributions from Atlantic Development. Something's wrong. Something's rotten in Denmark. To say that I was the assessor, to say that I don't understand pilots is absolutely part of the indoctrination that Ms. Walker wants to leave with unsuspecting voters. I know more about development than she knows about her own office. I will look at that project. I know nothing about the project except I started it. I started it and
I'm sorry, sir. That is a quick one right there. We're going to go to Janine Rose for the final panel question. We're getting down to the end here. This one will go to Maureen Walker.
Well, Brian, I'm just going to stick with this. Ms. Walker, your opponent is saying you don't know your job, you don't know City Hall, you're not the person for this job. Tell the viewers why you think you are the person for this job.
I am the person. I have been a very good controller. I dare to say an excellent controller over the years. It was through my management of finances that the city was able to have a surplus every year and to have a huge fund balance. The same fund balance that Ernie Davis has been able to raid over the years. And I want to address the fact that he said that I took a contribution from Atlantic Development. That is highly untrue. It is not true. I think he's mixing up Atlantic Development with probably something else. But you need to get your record straight. You can look at all of my disclosure forms, and you will not see anything from Atlantic Development. I voted against that project, and I voted against it because it was not good for the city in terms of it was going to put additional burdens on the people of the city. In order for you to make statements like those, you must have facts. And that is exactly why you are...
Thank you, ma'am, for respecting the bell. Let's go back to Ernie Davis. You can finish your thought on Atlantic Development because you kind of got cut off, too.
It's no big deal. Atlantic Development was a part of a big development. That was supposed to be some condos around the circle, the roundabout. And that with Hartley Park would strengthen that area, and that's why we started it. Now, it probably got out of control. Now, the controller says she was on top of things, but yet the city is in dire straits. She says there was no surplus, but then she says there is a surplus, and that she kept me from raiding it. I don't know how you could do all of these things unless you're a magician. And that is the reason. You see, you can talk, Madam Walker probably is a good accountant, but accountants don't make good mayors. They're too narrow. Mount Vernon, you have to think out of the box. You got up, down. Some things work, some things don't work.
Thank you, sir. Back to Ms. Rose for a follow-up for Maureen Walker only.
Ms. Walker, tell us why accountants don't make good mayors, or would they make a good mayor?
Accountants will make very good mayors, excellent mayors, because they have an idea of exactly how to manage budgets. They have an idea how to spend funds. They have an idea how to allocate funds to different programs. I am equipped with that expertise. If you have someone who was a mayor and who aspires to be a mayor, who still does not understand the difference between a surplus and a fund balance, that is very sad.
Thank you, ma'am. We are rapidly running out of time. The bell ringer is getting a little itchy over there. We're going to go right to our closing statements right now. And each campaign recently chose the order by lot. Maureen Walker, you are first. You have 2 minutes for your closing statement, ma'am.
Mount Vernon needs a mayor who can lead by example, who's a capable leader, and who can steer the city in the right direction. Mr. Davis is mayor for 12 years in a dark period for our city. We are still suffering from the effects of those 12 years. Do we as a city want to return to that era? Albert Einstein alluded to doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. The reason crime is high, taxes are high, senior buildings are falling apart, and there is an absence of summer jobs and after-school programs is that Mount Vernon lacks capable leaders who are committed to the residents they serve. We must also not forget the crime exploded under the Davis administration, strangling the development and image of our city. I have outlined a comprehensive plan to deal with this crime problem in our city. As your mayor, I will ensure as far as practicable that projects in Mount Vernon are constructed using local residents and local businesses to supply the needed resources. Mount Vernon can be a great city, but only if we have leadership that really cares about the people and not just someone who says they do. I promise you that if you elect me as your mayor, I will provide a new beginning for Mount Vernon. It is my firm belief that we can restore pride and confidence to our city. Elect me, Maureen Walker, on ballot position 4C, the person who is undoubtedly the most capable individual for the job of mayor in these trying economic times. I represent the hope and future of Mount Vernon. Your vote will be crucial to the direction the city takes. Vote 4C. Thank you, and may God bless each and every one of you.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Ernie Davis, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement, sir.
Thank you very much for having me here. I am a Democrat. I won the primary with very little monies. I won because people wanted my leadership. My opponent is unhappy with that decision, and she has gone on a tear. She calls me a crook. The election was stolen from her, she says. She's willing to tear up the city apart to come mayor for a position even her strongest allies knows she's unsuited. She will tell any lie, obfuscate any fact to get her way. She's running on a line that is a conservative line. That is for cutting Social Security, taxing the middle class, cutting tax for the rich, against job development. The city more than ever needs a mayor that has experience and is truthful, fair-minded, and can bring people together, and has had a record of success and a plan for the future. This election is one of the most important elections for Mount Vernon in the next 50 years. When the historians write Mount Vernon's history, will they say that we blew an opportunity to move forward, or will they say we failed? It's up to you. November 8th, be there. I'm on row 4A. We'll see you there.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. All right, that wraps up our special Vote 2011 debate here on News 12. Candidates, thank you both for being here and sharing your views on the future of the city of Mount Vernon. Hopefully the voters have a better idea about where you stand on all these important issues. We also want to thank our media panelists for their participation tonight. News 12 Westchester anchor and news director Janine Rose, Bob Marone from WVOX Radio in New Rochelle, and Karen McBride of the Westchester Business Journal. Thank you all for your questions as well. And thank you to the viewers at home for watching, and all the Mount Vernon residents who participated as well by giving us questions out on the street. We thank you for that. Don't forget, you can join News 12 for complete Vote 2011 election night coverage on Tuesday, November 8th. We'll be live with all the local results, candidate speeches, and inside analysis you simply can't get anywhere else. I'm Brian Connie Bear. Thanks for watching, everybody. More local news coming your way next.